Mexico. It is time once again for CU Immigration here on WRFU LP Urbana, 104.5 FM. I will be your host for this evening. My name is Mr. Garza, and I'm here to let you know that WRFU is an open forum for the Urbana-Champaign community. Ouch. Views expressed are those of the speakers and are not intended to represent WRFU, UCIMC, Urbana Socialist Forum, or, as we like to say on this show, UPTV, because this is also broadcast on UPTV. So these views are our own, and by our in this instance, if you hadn't guessed, I mean the royal we, as in me, myself, and I. And that's it. It's just moi. No one else. That's all I can say. It's just me. Yeah. I'm being told that the volume is lower than usual. I don't know. Hello, hello. Hey, 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 hey. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, it is what it is. It is what it is. Or it is what it is, or something like that. So anyway, yeah, I haven't been on for a while. I succumbed to the plague a while back. Well, I didn't succumb. I almost succumbed. Anyway, the plague almost got me. But it did get my voice. It didn't get me. I didn't die from it, but I'm drinking water. It did kill my voice for quite a while. It was surprising. It's still very rough and strange in places. But it's mostly back, and so I can talk again. But yeah, for several weeks there, it was just like this. I could talk, and I could talk really low or something like that. But I couldn't, I could not get a normal sounding voice out. So it was very strange. Yeah. And I coughed a lot too, which, not that you care about that, but that was my excuse for not being on the air for a while. As I couldn't have been on the air. Unless I were to use sign language, in which case it might have worked on the UPTV portion of the show, but the radio would have been pretty boring, I must say. No offense against people who use sign language. It's a beautiful language, but it doesn't work on the radio. TV, yeah, fine. In person, great. Radio, not really. So, as usual, with the topic of immigration, a lot has been going on and nothing's been going on, if that makes any sense. I mean, it's strange. They're still trying really hard to do terrible things. They, meaning the current administration, is trying very, very hard to do terrible things. Often they are tripped up by their own zeal. So the sheer awfulness of what they're trying to do is so over the top that the courts won't allow them to do it. Or in some instances, people tasked with the effort of doing the awful stuff say, oh, no, that's too awful. And then so they have to fire them and get new people who are even less scrupulous. And it's amazing. They're really, really trying very, very hard to be horrible. And they are achieving it in some places and at some times, and not in others. So it's a mixed bag. And it's hard to... Honestly, it's hard to come on here week after week. I'm glad I had a few weeks off, because it's really hard to come in week after week and say the same thing over and over again, as if I'm trying to convince. I don't know who I'm trying to convince, because you, the thoughtful, insightful, intelligent listener that you are, probably, already knows that the government is doing terrible things or trying to do terrible things, and that there's no rational might not be the right word. There's no reasonable excuse for what they're doing. There are rational excuses. It is calculated. It excites the base instincts of the chosen um, constituency, I guess you could say. I mean, let's face it. Presidents in the past have done many awful things. I mean, I can't think of any president that didn't, at some point, do some fairly terrible stuff in the course of their job. I think it is built into the job in a certain sense, given that you are the leader of a pretty dominating country that likes to throw its weight around and get what it wants and control a manipulative and controlling government. So you can't expect anybody to get that job and not end up doing some of those things, because that's part of the job. And I've had many arguments with people over the years about this topic when they say, oh, no, this person will be different, or that person will be different, or if only we could get this person in, then it wouldn't be like that. But that's what the job is running this country and managing the empire, so to speak. And when people get out of line in the empire, you stomp on them. And when the empire sees something it wants, it takes it. I mean, that's the nature of empire. So the notion that electing this or that person is going to change that, like they're going to somehow step in and suddenly dismantle all of those things, is, I think, naive, I will say. And I won't say I've made enemies, but I've certainly lost closeness of friendships by saying that sort of thing, because there are people that really want to believe that it's just a matter of getting the right good person in there, and then, all good things will follow from there. So, I'm still very much of the you must vote philosophy, because it is vitally important, as we've seen in the last two presidents. You can point at Obama and say he did all sorts of terrible things, and I won't disagree with you, but he also did some good things, or pushed things in good directions. So he exemplifies, to my mind, someone who's taking that job and doing it very well. He ran the empire, and the empire flourished. And he brought it back from financial difficulties that the previous administrations had created through their recklessness and disregard. And he did all of this whilst fighting the Republican Party, who basically decided from the very beginning they were not going to go along with anything. So I would say, as leader of the empire, he did an excellent job as leader of the empire. And he also was should I say, moral enough, if I can use that term, person to try to push for some things that were very important, along with running the empire and, ordering people to be murdered overseas, and immigrants rounded up and sent home. I mean, he did all the usual terrible stuff that presidents always do, and he did some good things as well. So if you compare that to the current administration, where it's like, I cannot think of a single thing that Trump has done that I would say was a good thing. Not even accidentally. I don't think he's even accidentally done a good thing. He's pretty much trashed and destroyed and pushed in the worst possible direction that you can imagine. And if you just look at those two presidents, I would far rather be sitting here still complaining about Obama, deporter in chief, and all that sort of thing, than I would with the current situation, that I would do what I am having to do. So voting is extremely important, and you must do it because it is a calculated thing to do. Um, it is an opportunity to push things in a direction that you would like them to go, not to get them where you want them to be, which is where I think some people miss the point. They look at voting and go, "Oh, well, I will never have the my dream uh, candidate elected, so why bother?" There's no possible way that anyone that I would want to have leading the country can be elected, so I will not bother to do it at all, which is just stupid. It's like saying, I don't know, if your boat is sinking and you go, oh, well, I could bail out water, but there's no way it's going to keep us from, you know, getting water in here. I can't possibly bail faster than the water's coming in, so I'm going to do nothing. Well, okay, then you will drown really quickly. Instead of maybe you can keep going well enough to last long enough to be rescued or something. I mean, it's like voting is a strategic thing to do. And I know we're nowhere near any election, so I shouldn't be talking about this right now, but I just bring it up because I've had several weeks to think about the current administration and the current situation we're in, and to worry. I actually at times find myself laying awake at night going, we're doomed. There's nothing, we can't do anything. There's just the forces of evil have overpowered us. So, I mean, it's really serious stuff, and we're really in terrible shape, and it is getting worse daily. And we need to do anything and everything we can to push in the other direction. And that includes voting, maybe even having to vote for somebody you don't like very much, but that is certainly better than what we've got and what we will continue to have if you don't do it. So I guess that's all I'll say on that topic. Um, I wish more people would understand that just because it's not affecting you at this moment doesn't mean that there aren't things going on that you really need to care about. The fact that we're so blasé about the climate, for example, we just go, oh, well, yeah. People just don't want to do anything about it. Well, we should be doing something about it right now. We're witnessing every day the destruction of our environment. I mean, there's so many things going on that are really important that we are losing opportunities to possibly make a difference. We may be getting past the point where anything we do is going to help. That's seriously messed up, and that is something we really have to think about. And I'm not saying you should be laying awake at night worrying about these things like I sometimes do, but I am saying that you really need to care, and you really need to act if you can. If an opportunity arises for you to do so, you should act in some way. You don't have to go out and carry a sign. You don't have to go out and throw rocks through windows or whatever if that's not something that you are up to doing. But at least register to vote and vote and get rid of these people that are in power right now. They need to go away. So, having said that, I will begin reading some news bits here. The first article, surprisingly enough, is Trump's immigration plan. And it's entitled, How Trump's New Immigration Plan Could Hurt the Economy. And I know, before you even say it, I can hear you thinking, why is it always immigrants in the economy? Why is it economy? Why can't we welcome people for being people? Why does it have to be in our financial interest to do so? Well, it doesn't have to be in our financial interest to do so, but it is an argument that, if properly executed, can convince some people who are squishy on the topic, who don't seem to understand that immigrants are people and that they are friends we haven't met yet, and things like that, who don't have that thought in mind, who are selfish and who are looking out for number one. If you can convince them that to do things differently, then you can at least push laws. See, this gets back to my whole voting thing. You can't, you can rarely, I won't say you can't because that's defeatist, but one can rarely push things to where they're supposed to be all in one shove, especially when you've got a lot of people pushing all at once in different directions for different reasons. So just as you can't elect the miracle candidate, they're not out there, they don't exist, who is going to suddenly sweep in and wave their magic wand and turn this country into a paradise of goodness. You also can't push laws suddenly into the place where they ought to be and just create a situation where everything's just the way it ought to be. But you can push things in a righter direction. If you keep pushing in the direction of justice and humanity and I don't know, goodness, love, peace, all those hippie sounding things. If you push in that direction, then you're going to at least apply pressure on the right side of this against the forces that are going the other way. So when we talk about immigrants and the economy, it is important to recognize that there are a lot of people out there whose only concern is, what's in it for me? What do I get out of this? Why should I welcome immigrants? They're coming here and they want this and they want that. Just say no. We're fine the way we are. You know, there are a lot of people who think like that. So if you can give them reasons why it is in their interest, then that's not a bad thing, even though that is not a good reason in the greater scheme of things. Does that make sense? I'm just trying to say that we can't let perfection stand in the way of doing good. We have to try to do good things. We have to try to make things better. And we are not the only ones who have opinions, who have desires, who have an idea of how things should be. So it becomes important to figure out how to speak to those who oppose what you think is right in a way that makes them understand, at least to some degree, why your reasoning makes sense in their philosophy, in their way of looking at things. I mean, that's just an important part of conversation and of learning how to have dialogue with people. You can't just start out with, okay, here's our argument. You're completely wrong. Everything you believe in is stupid, and I'm just going to sit here and say that over and over again until you agree with me or go away. That's not a conversation. That's not dialogue. That's not discourse. That is simply staking out your ground and trying to defend it. And there are times you have to do that. When someone is pushing so hard in the other direction, you have to just say, okay, no farther. Absolutely no farther. And I totally agree with that. But at least assuming that we can start things going in a more correct direction, then we have to be prepared to argue for our principles, and in a way that can speak to those who have a differing set of principles, basically. Okay, so I'm just going to get back to the article. My nose itches. I'm very dry in here. I'm sitting here scratching my face. Okay. That's for the radio audience who can't see that I'm sitting here scratching my face. Otherwise, the TV audience is going, why doesn't that guy just cut it out. Start talking. Okay, so this, again, back to the story, was how Trump's new immigration plan could hurt the economy. Last week, the White House announced the outlines of a plan that would revamp the country's legal immigration system, cutting back family-based immigration in favor of merit-based immigration. Under that system, the U.S. would prioritize high-skilled immigrants with college degrees who speak English fluently over immigrants with immediate relatives in the U.S. Trump and his advisors claim that such a system, which is similar to the one in Canada, is simply about merit, the idea that high-skilled immigrants contribute the most to society. But even if you ignore the racist undertones of that idea, the plan is flawed even based on pure economics. So this is where we get into the argument. The U.S. economy needs low-skilled immigrants much more than high-skilled immigrants. The country is experiencing a massive labor shortage across all industries, and businesses are having a much harder time finding construction workers, restaurant cooks, and hotel housekeepers than they are finding computer engineers and doctors. The most in-demand jobs are exactly the kinds of jobs that undocumented workers are doing, but Trump's immigration proposal ignores them completely. In fact, his plan could make the shortage even worse. The numbers say everything. In March, there were only 811,000 unemployed workers with bachelor's degrees looking for work, and 1.4 million open positions for professionals like them. The U.S. needs more high-skilled workers to fill all those positions, sure, but the gap is even bigger in low-wage industries that don't require a college education. There were more than 2.1 million open positions for low-skilled workers in March, but only 1.2 million people without college degrees looking for work. That's nearly 2 jobs available for every unemployed person with nothing more than a high school diploma. In that sense, low-skilled immigrants are the ones who could contribute the most to the U.S. economy. An immigration system that puts them at the back of the line would make a difficult situation even worse. The president's latest immigration plan is light on details, of course, but Trump and his advisors have long talked about changing the U.S. immigration system to focus on merit. The United States currently issues more than 1 million green cards each year, which provide foreigners with legal permanent residency, according to data from the Department of Homeland Security. Roughly 140,000 are employment-related. The rest are based on family ties, refugee status, and the diversity lottery. The plan Trump is proposing would change that entirely. The new green card system would prioritize immigrants with high levels of education, English language fluency, and professional skills. It also includes more money for border security. No surprise there. Most of the green cards would go to immigrants under a point system that ranks applicants based on certain criteria, such as professional skills, education level, age, and English fluency. Another element, according to the Washington Post, includes points for applicants based on patriotic assimilation. A concept that would favor immigrants who show interest in American culture. That could include a test of historical text, such as George Washington's farewell address. Notably, as Vox's Dara Lind explains, the plan does not address the undocumented immigrants currently living in the United States. It also pivots away from Trump's habit of talking only about the crisis of undocumented migrants crossing the southern border. But a renewed focus on high-skilled immigrants would do little to solve the biggest problem with the current immigration system. For nearly a year now, the number of open jobs each month has been higher than the number of people looking for work, the first time that's happened since the Department of Labor began tracking job turnover 2 decades ago. At the end of January, the U.S. economy had 7.6 million unfilled jobs, but only 6.5 million people were looking for work, according to data released last week by the Labor Department. This was the 11th straight month that the number of job openings was higher than the number of job seekers, and each month the gap has grown. For 2 decades, there have been more available workers than available jobs. That changed last year. Employers have been complaining about a shortage of skilled workers in recent years, particularly workers with advanced degrees in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math fields. Nearly every industry now has a labor shortage, but here's the twist. Employers are having a harder time filling blue-collar positions than professional positions that require a college education. The hardest to find workers are no longer computer engineers. They are home healthcare aides, restaurant workers, and hotel staff. The shift is happening because more and more Americans are going to college and taking professional jobs, while working-class baby boomers are retiring en masse. This means that for once, low-skilled workers have the most leverage in the current labor market. There's no better time for working-class Americans to demand better wages, benefits, schedules, and work conditions. It also means immigration reform is more urgent than ever. In order to fill all the open jobs and keep the economy growing, Congress will need to allow more low-skilled immigrants to work. Trump's immigration plan does the opposite. The new labor market data shows a lot of unfilled jobs that require college degrees, about 1 million in the professional business service sector. That includes lawyers, consultants, and computer programmers. But there are even more open jobs that don't require that much education, including retail, hotel, and restaurant jobs. There's also high demand for home health aides to care for aging baby boomers. These are the kind of jobs that low-skilled immigrants, often from Latin America, have long helped fill. But Trump's restrictions on immigration threaten to make the labor shortage worse. Since taking office, his administration has tried to scale back nearly every avenue of legal immigration, ignoring the high demand for unskilled immigrant workers, even at his own golf clubs. Back in 2017, the Wall Street Journal's editorial board warned Trump that his restrictions on immigration could hurt the economy. Quote, "If President Trump wants employers to produce and build more in America, the U.S. will need to improve education and skills in manufacturing and IT. But the economy will also need more foreign workers and better guest worker programs to bring them in legally," the newspaper said in March 2017. Darrell West, an expert on technology and public policy at the Brookings Institution think tank in Washington, pointed out in 2013 that the U.S. economy would suffer if Congress didn't overhaul the immigration system. America's immigration system is not designed for today's economy and remains largely unchanged since 1965. In fact, the approximately 1 million green cards given out by the U.S. in 2011, around 139,000 or 13%, were given out for economic reasons, a number far too small to meet the needs of the world's largest economy. Providing more work visas for skilled and unskilled immigrants seems like an obvious solution to ease the labor shortage, but it is also the one solution Trump refuses to adopt. Instead, he would rather let businesses continue using undocumented immigrants, who are more vulnerable to exploitation and wage theft, including those his company has hired for decades. It's no surprise that his immigration proposal doesn't include a provision requiring businesses to adopt the E-Verify system, which would allow employers to fingerprint new hires or find out if they have a valid Social Security number on file with the federal government. Trump almost certainly knows that E-Verify would make it much harder for businesses, including his own,